This is Travis Wayne Goodsill, and only got 4 hours of sleep. I was up late, and because it's the end of the month, beginning of a new one today. I will insert what Trump or Pence told C-SPAN. He was interviewed yesterday, and so C-SPAN covered it. So I'll include that clip. The one thing I want everybody to remember is that Trump is not the only one to blame, because Mueller apparently has indicted President Trump. Maybe his son, but Trump has been indicted specifically. Lest we forget, remember, we've failed to follow our Constitution of voting for independent candidates. And if you read the Constitution, the race for presidency during a presidential election is not being followed because it's party candidates we vote for. We vote for a party representation of president and vice president. The Constitution allowed for a vice presidential candidate to be from an opposing position. Those runner-up got to be the president or vice president. And Congress over time had altered that. After JFK was assassinated, Congress altered what to do about the succession of president during that time. All that aside, it was not intended to have a president and vice presidential ticket for elections. And so, yes, Pence must be included in all of this. He is not excused from potential crimes of Trump. They were on the same ticket. Pence knew, and he is complicit. He too was getting paid through the money laundering and all that in order to become the vice president with Trump being the president. So he's not guilty at all, or he is guilty. He's not guilty. I don't know. It's 4 hours, people. Give me a break. Please remember that. If the FBI is not including Pence in all of this, because Pence agrees with Trump and everything he decides, locking of babies and children, and this particular one taking away birthright citizenship, because it's not just going to be with, we're going to keep out illegals. They're not illegal until after a judge says they're illegal. Remember, there's supposed to be a constitutional due process of rights. That's for everybody if we were to follow the Constitution. But as I showed in my previous video, Republicans don't believe in constitutional rights. And that's why they're calling these Caravan illegals. And that justifies them taking away birthright citizenship. Because if they can claim that they're illegal entering the United States, they can do whatever they want because they're criminals. Again, people are not allowed to petition for redress of grievances, therefore they're committing a crime when they protest. That's the Republican Party platform. That's the video that I did. Republican versus Democrat Party platforms. So, So please, you do not want authoritarian government. We don't want it. Not just because we want Democrats. We don't want Democrats either. Watch the video I talked about. Because Democrats are not for equality. They claim equality, but it's at the suppression of a selected group in order to promote another group or other groups. And so, Mueller has somebody subpoenaed, and they're fighting it out in the federal courts, all in secret, because the case is sealed because of the high security nature that it involves. And so that's why everybody suspects, it's Trump that's fighting the subpoena. Which, it doesn't explain why Trump is getting worse. When you're fighting a subpoena, the last thing you want to do is encourage a grand jury or a judge to side with the prosecution against you. But that's the bizarre nature of this whole thing. And so, he got Kavanaugh in. So Kavanaugh will be protecting him, even though he's supposed to recuse himself. So, yeah, but that's what they're going to do. They're going to rig everything to violate the Constitution in order to promote security for the nation, as they call it. And that's authoritarianism. That did not guarantee us, the people, we the people, constitutional rights. They're gone now. We're in a full Republican Party where Constitution does not exist. It's not followed, it's not adhered to. And I've known about it because I live in Utah. We don't have constitutional rights in Utah. Lawyers will not take cases against the government for violations of the Constitution. You can't seek justice. And you get arrested for protesting. So we've already known about this in Utah. We've known about the suppression and the oppression of the people. And people are forced to silence and conformity through the ransom economy. Whether they realize it or not. And they could vote out Republicans, but they don't. The people here in Utah continue to say, yes, we like authoritarianism because our church tells us to. And so that's a big problem here in Utah. But please remember, we cannot have Pence replace Trump if by some weird phenomenon they're able to pull Trump down. Pence is a part of it. He is an equal partner in all of this. Lest we forget Mike Pence.
This morning, in an interview that came out, I think it was taped yesterday, the president said he might use executive orders, his authority, his solo authority, to eliminate the principle of birthright citizenship, which means if someone's born here, they become a citizen. Legal scholars think this is a pretty open and closed constitutional issue. What would be the administration's argument that the president could do this unilaterally?
Well, first, let's recognize we have a crisis on our southern border. And while this migrant caravan that's coming north has been a source of great concern for millions of Americans, I hear it everywhere I go as I travel across the country. The truth is that we have more than 1,000 people attempt to come into our country illegally every day. And President Trump, from our campaign in 2016 to every day since, has been calling on the Congress and taking the action that's available to stem this tide of illegal immigration. And one of the things the president articulated on the campaign trail 2 years ago was that we want to look in the broadest way possible at American law that may be used as a magnet to draw people into our country. Some of those loopholes are like catch and release. Some of those loopholes are in other categories. There are things that human traffickers actually use to entice vulnerable families to make the long and dangerous trip north up the peninsula, often at great risk to themselves. And frankly, birthright citizenship is a part of that. And what I think the president's made clear is that we are looking at action that would reconsider birthright citizenship. We all know what the 14th Amendment says. We all cherish the language of the 14th Amendment. But the Supreme Court of the United States has never ruled on whether or not the language of the 14th Amendment, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, applies specifically to people who are in the country illegally. And I think the president's looking at executive action. I know the Congress has looked at legislative action to reconsider that. But our broad objective here is we need to fix a broken immigration system that's being used by people who literally are exploiting vulnerable people, enticing them to make this long journey north to our border in the hopes of coming into our country illegally. And we need to have a system where people know how to come into the United States legally, and that we have a system that's working for the American people first, and that it's working in an orderly way, like it did for my grandfather when he came through Ellis Island when he was 23 years of age from Ireland. The system isn't working today, Jake, and we've got to reform it.
Be a pretty drastic action to do that unilaterally, the president doing that by himself.
Well, I'll leave it to the president to announce whatever actions we'll take. I know the president yesterday made the decision that we're deploying 5,200 troops to our southern border. There's already 2,000 National Guard there now. We're going to have the troops there to support Border Patrol agents as this caravan continues to make its way north, but also as the crisis of illegal immigration on our southern border continues. But in terms of changes in the law, in terms of executive action, I don't want to get ahead of the president, but you can look back at that famous speech in Phoenix that he gave about immigration reform, and he spoke about us taking on this issue and taking on other issues in a way that we can have a debate about having an immigration system in America that's working for the American people first, and that includes re-examining this whole issue of birthright citizenship.
So the one thing that we would be doing if we were a constitutional republic would be to be sending our military to rescue the caravan, bringing them to our country so that they can seek asylum, seek refuge, and preventing them from further torment and torture by having to walk for months to come before they finally reach America, as many are dying off and giving up because it's just too long of a journey by foot. We need to rescue them. So keep that in mind. Rescue humanity, rescue humans, or torture us, the people, as our government beefs up security against a threat that is long in coming, that may never be a threat at all, since it's women and children, little babies with MS-13 tattoos. That's not a threat.